Right, this is a video about partial views and view components in the .NET Core MVC. So, first of all, I have a problem. So I have parts of a view, some fairly complex code, and I want to use it in several different places in the same view or in different views, and I don't want to have to copy the code in these places. Right. And then the second problem, I do not want to have to use Razor code too much. Okay, let's take a look at the first problem first. Now, we're going to use something called a partial view. A partial view is just a view really, but it's not supposed to be rendered independently. It's supposed to be included in some other view. For the names of a partial view usually starts with an underscore. That's a convention. Okay, so let me show you my problem first. So I have an MVC application here. I have a car model. It has an ID, name, model, and age, and it has a list of properties that you can add properties to a simple constructor. Okay, so what I want to show in several places in my application is I want to do some fairly complex logic here, like I want to loop through all my properties, and if I find this one's CIA property, I'm going to say that this is a secret, and if it's secret, I'm just going to print out the name of the model. The name of the car. The car is a model here. I'm just going to print out the name and then no further information available. But if it's not a secret car, I'm just going to print out the model and the age also. So, and I don't want to have to do this all over the place. So what I've done is put this into what is called a partial view. You can see by the underscore, show car info. Now I could show this independently, but that would not make much sense. But what I am doing is I want to include it in my index view, which has as a model a list of cars. So what I do is I loop through my list of cars, and for each of them, I render this view using, I use an HTML helper called partial async, and I name the view, and I send along the model for the view, and then I use a wait. Or I could use this, but that's an asynchronous call, but Microsoft says they're going to remove this in the end. It's not deprecated, but it should be deprecated. It's going to disappear at some point, so don't use it anymore. So this is an easy way to have the code from here included in your page. And if I had index 2 page, I could also use it there. Or you could use it further down this page, maybe, showing the first car only, or the car, maybe the car that someone clicked on, right? It could be used many places. This is one line. Think of this as a method call. I call the method here, and this is the method, right? Okay, so this is a way to structure your program, and it has the usual benefits. One, this one becomes easier to understand because I isolated this difficult code to somewhere else. And the second advantage is I can use this several places without having to copy it. Right, that's how the usual properties of a method are. And it's the same here. Structure your application. Okay, so much for partial views. Let's see what I wrote here. So you use HTML.partial async like this, or there's something called a partial tag helper. But to my knowledge, a partial tag helper is not going to be able to pass on a model to the view. I may be mistaken, but I think I haven't been able to find how to do it at least. So that's fine. This is very easy. You can easily use this, but it has one problem. Sometimes when I make code, if I write something wrong, misspell something or something, the code is going to puke all over me. Now, in this specific case, it's not the code that's going to puke over me. This is so ugly. I'm going to puke all over the code. This is horrible. Or unless you really like, if you really enjoy Razor code, this is great, right? All the ampersands. But if you don't like that, then this is bad for you. So I would like to be able to replace at least some of this logic with regular C# code. Okay, that's where view components enter. And if you notice, that's the second part of my problems. I do not want to have to use Razor code extensively. Right now, I'm using it too much, to my taste at least. That's why we have view components. So what happens in view components is you split the partial views in two. One that is view code and one that handles complicated logic. Pretty much the same as the usual view. Your usual view is split into the view and the controller code, right? In the controller code, you put complicated logic, and in the view, you put specific view logic, and you don't write too much Razor code. So that's what you want to achieve with view components. So so we have the view part and the rest of the view component. Now let's see how this works. Yeah, so how do you create a view component? Missing a W there, I can see. So you add a class that either extends view component or has the view component attribute or has a name that ends in view component. Okay. And then you add a method to it called invoke or invoke async. And then you add a view that has to have a very specific naming. It has to be positioned under the controller name or possibly shared if you want to share this component view over more than one controller. And the folder name, another folder, subfolder called components, and then the name of the view component. This is completely ununderstandable if you look at it. So let's see how I did this. So I made a class called show car info with view here. So see, it extends view components, which was one of the ways you could make a view component. Okay, it's just a regular class. I put it under components. I think it doesn't have to be there, but it's more or less a convention to put it there. And I made the method, the invoke method. So the invoke method takes a car as a parameter, but you're free to decide what to do. So what this is going to do is it's going to generate the 3 lines, not 2 or 3 lines that I want to use. If you recall this, it generated 3 lines or 2 lines. So it goes through all the same logic, looks through the properties, checks if the CIA property is there, and if it's secret, then it adds those 2 lines. Otherwise, it adds those 3 lines to a list. And then I call the view with that information. Now it could be something more complicated, sending to the view. It's not really important. But the point is that this logic here and this logic here is written in C#. Now we like that better, some of us at least. Now I need to send this to my view. And the rendering engine is saying, this is a view component. I call the invoke method, and it returns, I need to return the view. Now it looks for the view in those locations I described to you. I think there might actually be more locations, but these are the usual two. So it looks under views and name of the controller, components, the view component name. And let's see the views, the controller name is home, components, and the view component name, show car info with view, like there, show car, those has to match. Okay, and then the name of the view itself is default.cshtml. Now, I don't know why they decided on this naming convention, but that's how it is. You can change some of these. I think you can change the name of the view, but I think this is how you, this is the east. Just follow this naming convention, and you'll be home safe. So what's in this view? Okay, it just takes the list of strings and displays it, right? So far less razor code, far more decent code. So that's the main point of the view component. You want to have this duality between the C# code and the razor code. Same thing you have with the controller. See, here's a controller, and I have the index action, and it returns a view, and as a model it calls get cars, which somehow gets a list of cars. What do I know? Get it from the database, and it adds the CIA property to the Suzuki. So the Suzuki is a secret car, whereas the Ford is not. That's because of the Suzuki being a far more advanced car than Ford, I guess. Well, maybe not. What do I know? Anyway, this could be more complex. It could fetch something from the database and send to the views, pass to the view. And inside the view, we just receive this. We don't in here. We don't decide on how to deal with data. Where should I get data from? Now the controller is where you want to keep those kind of complex things. So the view should be as dumb as possible. So the loop just receives a list of cars, and if I want to use the partial view, I can do this, meaning I have to put the complex logic here inside the partial view in razor code, or I could go down here and I could just use my view component, right? So the way I call the view component is I type component.invoke async and the view name, and send along the model also. See, this one corresponds to this method here. So that's pretty much the point. So you create the C# part of the view component, and you create the view part of the view component, put it in the right folder, and add the invoke method to the view component class, and then where you want to show it in the view, you say component.invoke async and the view name, right? So the point of the view component is if you have heavy or heavier logic, if you don't want to code in Razor alone, create a view component. Okay, thanks, that's about it.